Hello, Phil Collins is with me to discuss his new autobiography and why he's heading back to the live stage, and Gillian Clarke. But first, in a rock band, the drummer is often the butt of the jokes. So what do you call a drummer who steps out from behind the kit, takes over as lead singer, then leaves to become one of the biggest solo stars in the world? The answer is, of course, Phil Collins, who's estimated to have sold around 150 million albums, on top of the 100 million or so that he sold with Genesis. Phil Collins at the mic and behind the kit on just some of the many hits from throughout his career. In 2011, after not having played live for several years, Phil announced that he had retired from music, not least because of the massive physical toll that drumming had taken on his body. As he now reveals in a new autobiography called Not Dead Yet, retirement left him with a lot of time on his hands, and he started drinking heavily, a habit that almost killed him. But earlier today, Phil Collins announced that he's become a working musician once again. He's playing a 5-night residency at the Royal Albert Hall in London next year, and he's with me in the Front Row studio. Phil, welcome back to Front Row.
Thank you.
Last time you were here with your Genesis bandmates talking about a film about that band, you said, "That's it, I'm retired, it's all over." What's changed?
Oh, damn. Did I say that? Yeah, I mean, sometimes you feel like you've got to kind of slam on the brakes to just stop. And I wanted to stop. I felt I'd done pretty much most of what I wanted to do.
Mm. But clearly you've missed it, and the music is in your blood. But just to be clear, you're not going to be drumming on stage. It's just going to be a...
Well, I don't know.
What?
I mean, it's 6 months from now, the shows. So I've got a kit in the garage, and it won't ever be the same again, so I just got to I've got to get my wrists, my fingers stronger.
It was tendonitis, it was all sorts
of
things.
Well, I don't know what it was. It was a neural thing on my left arm during the Genesis reunion tour. And I play with my fingers, quite a lot when I'm playing the drums. So it really hit me bad, and... But I've got a kit in the garage, and I'll start practicing. I know I've got to get a bit more match fit to do the tour, but that's not a big deal for me.
And you say in the book you are a drummer. You are first and foremost a drummer. You got your first kit when you were 3 years old, and I mean, you say very interestingly, you communicated through the drum kit for so much of the time. The drum kit was your best friend, but of course it's the thing that broke you ultimately, isn't it?
Yeah, in fact, I remember on the Genesis reunion tour, there was something happened during the last part of the show. We were doing a drum duet, and it got faster and a little bit out there every night, and suddenly, somewhere on the line, I don't remember any moment when this happened, but the body just wove a white flag. Interestingly, though, the last... Simon's my oldest son. He's 40, and the last time I really played drums on a record was on his record, and he'd written this drum duet for me and him, and it was brutal. I mean, I kind of felt I had to live up to Dad, but I mean that was actually the last time I probably played properly. But,
when was the last time you picked up the sticks then? I mean, you say there's a kit waiting in the garage ready.
Yeah, there's a kit waiting in the garage, and I walk around it occasionally.
But that must be so difficult, having described it as your best friend, having been the way that you communicate, the fact that you couldn't even sit at that kit, you couldn't do anything with it. Was that psychologically, was that difficult?
Do you know, I'm pretty philosophical about all this. I mean, it's like when I lost some of my hearing in my left ear, I just figured I'd had a good crack at it, And with drums, I'm 65, I played drums for 60-odd years, and all I feel is it would be nice to have a choice. It would be nice to sort of to be able to say yes or no as opposed to just it being no. So I'm going to try my best. My second to youngest son, Nicholas, is 15. He's got his own band. They rehearse at the house. And I hear him play. He wants to hear me play. He's trying to, give me a nudge to sort of go in the garage. So I'm kind of surrounded by it, really.
So you've passed it down to two of the sons. Interestingly, in the book, the relationship with your father is quite a fraught one, and you're very candid about this, and you suggest that he wasn't happy about the route you were taking.
Oh, he definitely wasn't happy.
And when he died, there was something that had never been repaired properly between you.
No, I think, 21 in 1972 when he died is probably is younger than 21 would be now. 20, I felt he left too early, and I think I take it out on him in the book. Having finished the book and read it, and I give it to my brother to read. He said, "You're being a bit hard on Dad," and I toned it down a little bit, but I think I was angry at him leaving. Not leaving me with enough, which was my fault because I was obsessed by playing.
And there's a lot of self-analysis in the book. And if we look at that period of the huge success of the 80s and into the 90s, a time when there was a lot of money in the business and a lot of rewards. But of course, with that success came a huge amount of antipathy for you. You really, with caricatured in the press, scathing comments from other musicians. Did that hurt at the time? And is it something that you're prepared for again, having announced this morning that you're heading back into that arena?
Yeah, you got a bit used to it by now. Interestingly enough, though, the Noel Gallagher remark, which has come, which is, I think you're talking about scathing remarks, I found out because my co-writer, the person that helped me put all this in order, because it's a very dense life, Craig McLean, he interviewed Noel and he said, "But I'm doing a book with Phil. Is there any reason for this?" He said, "No, actually, I just said it once for a laugh," kind of thing.
Yeah. He saw you as the musical enemy when Oasis first arrived.
Yeah,
and it was
but
just...
that, a lot of that is things that are said that stick to you.
Sure.
And so, I'm prepared for it, of course. But I think that, as with Genesis, when we stopped and then we did a reunion tour 10 years, odd years later, the critical reaction and the audience reaction, well, the audience has always been good, but the critical reaction was very different, because they'd forgotten about us, and actually things had changed so much that we actually, were like, "Hey, this is how you do it," like a great show and two drummers and things.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that maybe there's a bit of time for reassessment, but I'm not doing it for the critics. I'm doing it. My kids want me to do it, and I've got feelings over the last few years, of meeting people in the street and them saying, "We miss you, man. We miss you. No one does what you do."
Why did you sit down to write the book, given that there are so many episodes that you need to go through and so many stories which have become almost received wisdom about Phil Collins? A couple of them, you address them head on. For instance, when you first headed out on your own, you're playing In the Air Tonight on Top of the Pops, and you're sitting there with the paint pot on the piano. Everybody said it's a reference to the fact that your wife had had an affair with the decorator.
Yeah, but don't mention that. No, my first wife and my second wife have not read this book, and I'm waiting for the flack. But I believe that I have dealt with it quite elegantly. I realised that I was away all the time. That was the most kind of surprising thing, that when I wrote the book, and we brought up on the internet, what did you do in 75? Okay, what did you do 76? It was like 5 months, 2 weeks home, 6 months, 2 weeks home. Simon was born, 2 weeks home, go back to the studio.
It's a punishing schedule. And
clearly it was a tough schedule on her.
Yeah. Well, and also because you seem to bear a lot of guilt as well. You say you weren't there for the kids.
Riddled with guilt.
Yeah. But just to actually put the record straight about that pain point, you still maintain that was about set dressing in Top of the Pops rather than a coded message to the wife.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It never occurred to me.
There's a fantastic picture in the book here in front of me, which is of the original first draft of In the Air lyrics, which are written, in fact, on a decorator's invoice.
Yeah. I couldn't afford a legal pad. But, yes, it was, you know... I got asked to do Top of the Pops, and I don't believe we'd ever done it before. Rehearsals went after rehearsal, bits were added to it. And someone, not me and not at my instruction, added a paint pot.
Added the paint pot. Even there was another paint pot there next time you appeared on Top of the Pops.
Was there?
Yeah, apparently, yeah. But anyway, let's move on from that. We move on through the decades. And of course, you have hit retirement. And I hinted at this in the introduction, and it was one of the most surprising things I read in the book, the fact that you literally had nothing to do when you decided to retire and you hit the bottle. Somebody who had survived the 60s and the 70s and the excess of the 80s, who hadn't succumbed to the drink and the drugs and hadn't gone through rehab, and you put yourself in a place where you came close to death because of the excessive drinking.
Yeah. Well, I retired to be with the kids, to be dad. But